Hi, welcome to this overview of Module 1, Thinking and Writing from a Biblical Worldview. As you do your Master of Arts program here at Grace, we want you to think and write from a biblical worldview. And setting the foundation for that is what this week is about. Now, there's lots of work to do here. Please be sure to read this introduction. I'm in the Module 1 link here on the course. If you click on Module 1, you'll come to this page. And read the introduction to the week's work. Be sure to always pay attention to your learning outcomes. What is supposed to happen to you because you did this week's work? Well, you're supposed to be able to identify the foundations of a biblical worldview, and you're to examine the ways in which contemporary culture views those who hold a biblical worldview. And then you're to reflect on the formation of your own biblical worldview. This is an opportunity to stop and think about what is my worldview. And the worldview, it's what the word says. It's just the way you view the world. But a worldview operates whether we think about it or not. So we're always operating out of a worldview. And as Christians and in this program, I assume we all want our worldview to be biblical, to be shaped by the Bible. But this week's work helps us to stop and examine and say, well, is it really? And what do other people think about that? And how will I engage with people who don't think the way I think? So your required reading is from Think Christianly by Morrow. It looks like this, if you can see it. Your screen's probably pretty small for seeing that book. Read chapters 4 through 9. That's a pretty good hunk of reading, and there's more to come. Remember that you're expected to do about 20 hours of work a week on this course, so it's going to be pretty hefty. And then you're to watch the Module 1 PowerPoint, A Biblical Worldview by Dr. Shane Johnson. Now, how are you going to watch that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Right down here in Lectures, Media, and Supplements, you click there, open it up, and there are 2 YouTube videos, which will be Dr. Johnson sharing his lecture with you on biblical worldview. So that's the input side, but to learn, you have to put something out. While I was working on my PhD, I made my living by tutoring high school students, mostly high school students, a few junior high, one college. But I always said this at my first session with every student. I can tell you probably everything you're supposed to know in this lesson or the lessons we're going to work on. But you will not learn from what I say. You will learn from what you say. And that's why in a graduate course like this, we ask you to do quite a bit of writing. If we were in a classroom, we'd do a lot of discussing verbally, but we've got to discuss in writing here in a graduate classroom online. And that's what these learning activities are. Every week you're going to have these learning activities. And here are our learning activities for Module 1. The first one's a personal introduction discussion. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're reading, what your ministry is, what your professional goal is. I've already put one up introducing myself. I may add to it. I noticed the question in here is no, I take that back. Excuse me for getting distracted there. I may add to that. But tell us about what you anticipate for this course. Let's have a good discussion, give and take with each other there. All right. So, to get to that discussion, 2 ways. You can click on Personal Introduction Discussion right there, and then you click Create Thread and put your discussion up. If you want to read others, like the one I put here, you simply click on it. And there's my post with my family picture, and you can look at that. But I said there's 2 ways to the discussion. The other one is this link over on the left, discussion board. That takes me into this, which has all of the discussions for the whole course here. And Mod 1, Introduction and Biography, is right there. And boom, we're right back where we were. So let's go back to Module 1 and back down to Learning Activities. Your second learning activity is about a biblical worldview, and it's going to help us all develop a biblical worldview, examine our biblical worldview, talk about what a biblical worldview really is. So to do that, you have to do the reading in Maro first and watch the Shane Johnson PowerPoints first. And then again, you click on this here, this heading, and you will go to the discussion and post your discussion. Please be sure to both post your response to the discussion and respond to at least 2 of your classmates, and then come back and see what people said to you so you can respond to them. These are discussions. There needs to be give and take and give and take. You need to come back to them repeatedly throughout the course. Notice in the assignment instruction, in addition to the materials you read for the course, cite the relevant thought of another scholar. Maro includes a helpful bibliography at the end of each chapter. Part of being a graduate student is looking for resources yourself. So this is your first little chance to find some additional resources and cite at least one of them on a biblical worldview. Now, the next thing is a paper. This is 75 points. It's the biggest assignment of the week. And I'm not going to go over all the instructions for the paper here. I may put some more information up as the week goes along. But notice that the instructions are rather extensive. Read the whole instructions. And when you get down here, the instructions tell you to read some articles at this link, and then they tell you to read the article at each of these links. Now, on this first one that's black here on my screen, if you click on that Worldview Bootcamp, you're only going to get part of the article. It's a very short article, but you still only get part of it. I linked the whole article up here. Now, how did I get the whole article? I used the Grace Bultema library. And I went to the theological database, the ATLA database. I simply typed into the search box Worldview Bootcamp, and up came my article, and I was able to get the whole article, even though they wanted you at this link to pay to get the rest of it. The Bultema library is a great resource for you. Be sure to make use of it. Then every week you're going to have a reflection discussion in which you talk about what you've learned this week. You need to do the reflection discussion at the end of the week. Finish up everything else before you do that reflection discussion. And then follow the instructions and post again. You click here, it's a discussion board. You post your reflection of what you've learned this week. Now, this is a discussion, and you can interact with each other about the reflection discussion. Because it has to come at the very end, oftentimes there isn't much interaction here. I encourage it, but I'm not going to grade you on the interaction on this one. I'm only going to grade you on your initial reflection. If you have questions about that, contact me. All right. That's week 1, a quick snapshot. I expect you'll read all of the text there, and as always, get in touch with me if you have questions.